So I've mentioned this a couple times on like live streams and during the podcast and just sort of in general here and there. But I grew up selectively mute, and I was thinking about a story that came from that part of my life, and it was one of the more pleasant things. It's actually the when I like stopped being mute part of it, which kind of like to go back a little bit here and not just skip straight to the end. For those of you who don't know, hi, my name's Pete. This is my channel where I talk about the random crap that goes on in my head. And this is all like unscripted. I may record these a few times because I kind of fuck up the words a bit here and there, but I never write a script because I want this to be as realistic as possible with all the pauses and the ums and the ahs, just sort of. I mean, there's a little bit of cutting here and there if I'm like kind of just like dead for a few seconds, but it's pretty simple, just like brain spew words go, type of shit. And yeah, I was selectively mute growing up, which if you don't know means you only speak to a select number of people in your life. They're kind of like your safe people that you feel confident talking to. Like usually it's like your mom, your dad, and like any close sort of family members. For me, it was my mom, my dad, my sister, my nana, grandpa, and my aunt, and then my two cousins. I never spoke to any of my uncles. I never spoke to my grandma. I mean, and this wasn't like I was born with it or anything. It was after a trip I took to Florida with my dad and family and after my folks had gotten divorced. And I came back and I just wasn't speaking. Then I got into kindergarten, and yeah, I will tell you very firsthand, like I could go into a lot of stories like this, and there are some on the podcast already that you'll hear, but when I was growing up, I was not viewed, I like a good like I was viewed as the weird kid. That was the best way. That's the best way I can explain it. Like the kid who just had some problem, and instead of people being nice, because they say kids are cruel, but like they were really cruel. To the kid who didn't speak and had to scribble all his words onto paper. And I did a whole bunch of different therapists and stuff. They were all court appointed to me, and I'll tell you right now, I fucking hated every single one of them. Like I hated going to therapy. There were a lot, and this is not like a don't go to therapy type of video. Like it just for me personally just didn't feel like it was the right thing for me, and not because I resisted. I did everything they asked. I explained all my problems. I talked about how I felt about things, and I was very, very open. Um, but for me, I just wasn't a huge fan of speaking. So I just went on like that for a very long time, up until September. I mean, I'm not September. Wow, my brain really autocorrected there. Seventh grade. I tried to say seventh grade, but my brain went to September. Holy shit. I got the brain rot. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I just didn't start speaking to people normally until I was in seventh grade. And this was at the time where I was going to a very specialized center for this type of stuff. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to put me on medication to get rid of the anxiety I had for speaking, which I did not have anxiety. It was a conscious choice I was making to just not speak. I wasn't afraid of like, oh, people were gonna hate my voice, or oh, people are gonna fucking judge me for what I say, or anything like that. Like it was never anything like that. It was just legitimately, I did not choose to speak, and that was a problem for everybody. And it had gotten to a point where they were trying to just give me a lot of medications. They were trying to, cure this problem, this ailment that I was suffering from, which really wasn't an ailment. It was just a obstacle in my life I had learned to deal with. And, I had gotten fed up with having to take medication. Firstly, because the first time that I got medication from them, it caused a lot of problems. It was not a fun night. I was like suffering, like from like a very physical response. I know that I said this was a happy story, or maybe I said that was a happy story, but we'll get in there. We're getting to the happy part of it. And for me, that was kind of where I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. If I've got to start speaking, I'm going to start speaking. But I was going to make the choices based on my own volition. And I started to choose consciously to start speaking very slowly to people. And again, it was not because they put me on any medication, because I still kept talking after the medication, and I know that the medication that they gave me was supposed to do something, but it didn't really do anything. Because again, this was a conscious choice I made. And not because I don't believe in like the effects of medicine, but like what they gave me. I don't remember the name offhand, but I know we're getting sidetracked. So this is the happy part of the story. So how I originally started speaking to people was two ways. I had kind of chosen a couple people that I just started talking to. I just made the choice to like, there's a couple people in my Spanish class, and I also had health with them. And I was talking to them, and they were like, holy shit, wow, you have a voice. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And we're just going to keep this down and quiet. And people were kind of like losing their shit over it. And then what ended up happening was the other way, was that I got into Xbox voice chats. And that was a fun time. Because of the fact that I was selectively mute, and at this point, instead of being really like bullied for it, I was more like, people were kind of nicer, I guess. Because like I equated in my mind to like the person who's like, got something, and like people treat them differently because of what they believe is some kind of ailment or problem. And a lot of the popular quote unquote people that I knew was because of the fact that I was selectively mute. So I was a hot topic of sorts for people. And for me, what this entailed essentially was me getting into Etspots live parties. Sometimes it was private chats. I think at first it was private chats because I didn't think I had gold at the time. So the gold, I think, came later. But I was talking to people, and they were like, holy shit, that's crazy. So my circle had sort of expanded more and more, to the point where I was like, all right, well, I'm pretty much talking to everybody on Etspots party chat. They know what I sound like. They know like who I am, what I say. So I ended up like about like maybe I think a week later. It did not take very long for me to go from speaking in Etspots party chats to speaking in person. And I just started screaming swear words on the back of my afternoon bus. I just started screaming them. Words that I probably had no fucking idea what the hell they meant or anything. And people were like shocked. They were like, whoa, what the fuck? Oh my god. Oh, it's crazy. Whoa. So then I went in the next day with this mentality of, all right, I'm talking in public, so now I'm going to, I'm just going to send it. I'm going to send it now. So that's exactly what I did. I went in to my first period class, and I just started talking. And people were kind of like, holy shit, what, huh? I think I had study hall that day instead of gym. I think it had to have been study hall. So I was talking to people, and they were like, wow, this is crazy. A couple people I had the next class with, which was social studies. And I raised my hand, and I answered the question of my social studies teacher, who was the best. I won't say his name, obviously, because, not going to dox anyone, but he was cool, and he'll come back into the story later. So, he was shocked, and the people in the class that didn't know I was speaking were also shocked. And the best part was that pretty much that entire class was in the next class with me, which was English. And I did the exact same thing. I answered the question. My teacher was like, yeah, can you explain your answer? And I'm like, and I explained it. And everybody just laughing their ass off. And the teacher's like, oh my god, what the fuck? Like it was like the second coming of Christ that day. And throughout the day, further and further, more and more people kind of like spread that information across the school. So everybody knew that I was speaking, and like people would like say, oh hi, how's it going? When I was like walking on hard, I'm like, good, how are you? And they're like, oh my god, what the fuck? Wow, crazy. So by the end of the day, I was the most popular person in the fucking world. And from there I just started speaking, and that was just my thing. I went back to that facility, And I told them, hey, yeah, no, fuck you. I'm speaking now. I don't want to ever see you again because of the way that you people treated me. Because it was not good. It was not fun. I did not enjoy my time because all they tried to do was dope me up. And I just said, no, I don't want to be doped up anymore. And I just fucking didn't do it. I didn't do it anymore. So I stopped taking the medication because I was speaking. I kept speaking. So again, I don't think the meds really were assisting me because there was no anxiety. Again, there was no anxiety for me to not speak. They just tried to force me to adapt because this is what society dictated, sort of thing, that you had to speak. And very much I understand. My life would have been fucking way different if I had been still selectively mute. But again, it was a choice that they kind of were like, all right, well, if you're trying to force me to do this, then I don't want to see you anymore. I'm gonna do it. So yeah, Xbox made me speak to people, um, because again, that's what I chose to go for. So after I started speaking, I ended up getting nominated for a Student of the Month award, which it's basically just a little fancy plaque you get. You get like a nice dinner and everything, and they like give a little speech about you. And my teacher, my social studies teacher, big fucking love that guy. He said to me, he's like, yeah, he gave up a speech. He's like, oh, when Pete, he first started this year, he didn't speak. And I remember those words so vividly and so distinctly. And I just remember, just being so like embarrassed, but also so proud of myself for getting recognized for doing the basics. I guess I don't know, but it was a nice experience, honestly, and I look back on that very fondly. And yeah, yeah, that was this is how I started speaking. Thank God Microsoft didn't suck back then. I mean, they kind of sucked. It was $60 a year for gold, but but yeah, I started speaking because I didn't want to go to therapy and go to specialized centers anymore, and I chose to start speaking. And now I'm making content online. I have a beautiful fiance whom I love to pieces and brings out the best in me, and I in her. You know, I've got good friends. I host a podcast. 6 p.m. EST Quartov's podcast on the bakery. Yeah, fucking. But yeah, it's such. I feel like my life would have been very more challenging. I would have been able to figure it out, probably, maybe, who knows. But I'm very happy that I am where I am today. And yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about today. I know that kind of maybe started off a little shitty with the story, but it was a good ending by the end. I'm very happy with the choice I made to do that, and I hope you guys like hearing my voice too. Yeah. So that's the story for today. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, ask me questions, and we'll answer some stuff in the next video. If you guys want, I'll pick some topics. If you guys have anything you want me to like talk about, or if you want to ask like for a specific kind of story on a specific topic, I can see if I have one. If you really like this stuff, this is very relaxing, very chill sort of content for me to make. So if you really like it, subscribe. Let's hit 15 by the time the end of the year comes. Yeah. I don't know. This is just I like doing this. This is very fun for me. I very much enjoy making this type of content, despite the fact I don't make it super duper often. Alright, I'm gonna go now.